The rifle shot split the frozen air. Ezra Callahan stood between the widow and three armed men, his fingers steady on the trigger. "Touch her children," he said, voice cold as the Montana winter, "and I'll bury you where you stand." Clara clutched her youngest to her chest, heart pounding. 12 hours ago, she didn't know this man existed. Now he was all that stood between her family and hell. But why would a stranger die for children that weren't his? Subscribe now and comment your city below. Let's see how far this story travels. Stay until the end. This journey is just beginning. The boy fell first. Samuel's small body crumpled into the snow like a rag doll, and Clara Whitmore's heart stopped beating. Samuel. She dropped to her knees, hands shaking as she pulled her 4-year-old against her chest. His lips were blue, his eyes barely open. "Mama." His voice was a whisper. "Can't walk no more." "I know, baby. I know." Clara pressed her cracked lips to his forehead. Cold. Too cold. Thomas. Her eldest was already there, 14 years old and trying to be a man. He lifted his little brother onto his back without a word, but Clara saw his legs tremble. "I got him, Ma." "Thomas, you've been carrying him for—" "I said I got him." Maggie tugged Clara's sleeve. "Mama Rose can't feel her feet." Clara turned. Her 8-year-old daughter stood in the snow, tears frozen on her cheeks, holding up one foot then the other like a wounded bird. "It hurts, Mama. It hurts real bad." Clara wanted to scream. She wanted to fall down in this God-forsaken snow and never get up again. 5 weeks since William died. 3 days since she'd fled. 2 days without food. And now the cold was taking her children piece by piece. But she didn't scream. She couldn't. "Lily." Clara's voice came out steady, though everything inside her was breaking. "Help your sister. Put your arms around her. Share your warmth." "Yes, Mama." Lily, the braver of the twins, wrapped herself around Rose without complaint. At 8 years old, she still thought this was an adventure. Clara prayed she'd never learn the truth. "Mama!" Maggie pointed east, her voice flat. "Smoke." Clara squinted against the white glare. There, maybe 2 miles out, a thin gray line rising against the winter sky. A ranch. "Thomas, you see it?" "I see it." His jaw was tight. Could be trouble. Could be. Clara pulled her shawl tighter, though it did nothing against the wind. Could also be the only chance we got. They walked. 1 foot in front of the other. Clara counted her children with every step. Thomas carrying Samuel. Maggie walking silent as a ghost. Lily and Rose huddled together, moving as one wounded creature. 5 children. Still 5. She'd kill anyone who tried to take even one. Ezra Callahan saw them from the barn. At first he thought the cold was playing tricks. 11 Montana winters had taught him that snow could conjure shapes from nothing. Ghosts of people who weren't there. But then the smallest figure fell, and a woman in a gray dress dropped to her knees beside it. Ezra set down his tools. He didn't run. He hadn't run toward anything in 11 years. But he walked fast, boots crunching through the knee-deep snow, his bad leg protesting with every step. By the time he reached them, the woman was on the ground. Children scattered around her like fallen leaves. The oldest boy, couldn't be more than 14, was trying to lift a small child onto his back, but his arms were shaking too hard. "Please." The woman looked up at him. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes were wild. "Just water, please. My children." Ezra didn't speak. He scooped the smallest child, a boy barely breathing, into his arms and turned toward the ranch house. "Follow me. Mr. I don't—" "Ma'am." He looked back at her, and something in his eyes made her stop talking. "Your children are dying. Follow me. Now." She followed. The ranch house was warm. Clara stood just inside the door, afraid to move, afraid to believe this was real. A fire crackled in the stone hearth. The smell of coffee hung in the air. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Sit them by the fire. The man, tall, broad-shouldered with gray, streaking his dark hair, laid Samuel on a worn sofa and started unlacing the boy's frozen boots. Not too close. Let them warm slow. Clara didn't move. Her body had stopped taking orders from her mind. "Ma'am?" The man looked up. His eyes were brown and deep and tired in a way Clara recognized. "Sit down." She sat. Thomas guided his sisters to the hearth. Maggie curled up on the floor, silent, watchful. Lily and Rose pressed together, teeth chattering. And Samuel? Is he? Clara couldn't finish the question. He's breathing. The man rubbed Samuel's small hands between his rough palms. Seen men survive worse in the war. But he needs food. When's the last time these children ate? 2 days. Clara's voice cracked. Maybe 3. The man's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He rose, disappeared into another room, and returned with a loaf of bread, dried meat, and a jar of canned peaches. Small bites. He set the food on a low table. They eat too fast, they'll be sick. The children descended like wolves. Clara watched them tear into the bread juice from the peaches running down their chins, and something broke open inside her chest. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. "Thank you." The words came out strangled. I don't know how to. Don't thank me yet." The man poured her a cup of coffee and pressed it into her shaking hands. "You're in trouble. I can see that much." Clara wrapped her fingers around the warm cup. "Yes." "Running from the law?" "No." "A man?" She hesitated. "Men." He nodded slowly, like this confirmed something he already knew. "They coming after you?" "I don't know. Probably." The man looked at her children. Thomas was feeding Rose pieces of bread, making sure his sisters ate before he did. Maggie had stopped eating and was staring at the rancher with those strange, knowing eyes of hers. Lily was trying to wake Samuel, shaking his shoulder gently, whispering his name. "How many?" the man asked. "How many what, man?" "Children. How many are yours?" Clara's throat tightened. "All of them." "5." The man stood. He was taller than she'd realized. Harder, too. Scars on his hands. A slight limp in his left leg. The kind of man who'd seen violence and lived. "Good," he said. Clara blinked. "Good? I'll take everyone." The words hung in the air like gun smoke. Clara stared at him. "I don't understand." "You'll stay here." The man crossed to the window, looking out at the snow. "Work the ranch if you want or don't. Either way, you and your children are safe." "Why?" Clara was on her feet now, though she didn't remember standing. "Why would you do that? You don't know us. You don't know what we've done." He turned. His face was unreadable. "What have you done?" Clara stopped. Her hand went instinctively to her side where she'd hidden the knife. "I stabbed a man." Silence. Thomas stepped forward, positioning himself between his mother and the stranger. "She was protecting us. He was trying to take my sister and she—" "I don't care." The man held up one hand. "I didn't ask for explanations. I asked what you'd done." He looked at Clara. "Was it deserved?" "Yes." "Then it don't matter." Clara's legs gave out. She sank back onto the chair, and for a long moment she couldn't speak. This didn't happen. Men didn't offer shelter to strangers with no conditions. Not in her experience, not ever. "What's the price?" she whispered. "The what? The price?" Clara forced herself to meet his eyes. "Nothing's free. What do you want from us?" Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe. Or memory. 12 years ago, he said quietly. I needed help. Needed it worse than I've ever needed anything. Nobody came. He paused. I swore if I ever saw someone in that kind of need, I wouldn't look away. That's it. That's it. Clara looked at her children. Thomas was watching the stranger with suspicion, and something that might have been hope. Maggie had moved closer to the fire, sketching something in the ash with her finger. Lily was curled around Samuel, who had finally opened his eyes. "Mama." Samuel's voice was small. "Where are we?" Clara didn't know how to answer. She looked at the stranger. "Stone Creek Ranch," he said. "My name's Ezra Callahan. You're safe here." He paused, then added almost like an afterthought. "Long as I'm breathing." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. Ezra had given them the bunkhouse, a small building behind the main house, with 4 beds, a wood stove, and walls that kept out the wind. It was warmer than anything they'd had in weeks. Cleaner, too. The children slept like stones. Even Thomas, who'd insisted on staying awake to keep watch, had finally surrendered to exhaustion, his body curled protectively around Samuel on the narrow bed. But Clara lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, waiting. Waiting for the door to open. Waiting for Ezra Callahan to show his true face. Waiting for the price she knew was coming. It didn't come. Midnight passed, then 1 o'clock, then 2. The ranch stayed silent. No footsteps outside the door, no shadow at the window. By 3 o'clock, Clara's exhaustion won. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 days, she didn't dream of running. Morning came gray and cold. Clara woke to the smell of bacon. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory rushed back: the snow, the ranch, the man with the tired eyes, and she sat up so fast her head spun. The children's beds were empty. Clara's heart stopped. She threw off the blanket, grabbed the knife from under her pillow, and ran outside. The main house door was open. Voices drifted out, children's voices, and something that sounded almost like laughter. Clara crept closer, knife ready. She pressed herself against the wall and peered through the doorway. Ezra Callahan stood at the stove, flipping bacon in a cast-iron skillet. Samuel sat on the counter beside him, legs swinging, watching with wide eyes. Lily and Rose were setting the table, actual plates, actual forks, while Maggie sat in the corner sketching on a piece of brown paper. And Thomas? Thomas was sitting at the table talking. Actually talking, his face animated in a way Clara hadn't seen in months. "And Pa taught me to shoot when I was 10, but I ain't had much practice since." "We'll fix that," Ezra said, not looking up from the bacon. "Can't live out here without knowing how to handle a rifle. Not safe." "You'd teach me, if your mother allows it." Clara's knife hand dropped. She must have made a sound because suddenly everyone was looking at her. Samuel's face lit up. "Mama, Mr. Ezra made breakfast. He made bacon." "I see that." Clara slipped the knife back into her pocket, hoping no one noticed. "You should have woken me." "Tried." Ezra transferred the bacon to a plate. "You didn't move. Figured you needed the rest." Clara stood in the doorway, unsure what to do. The scene before her was so domestic, so ordinary, that it felt like a dream, or a trap. "Sit down, Ma." Thomas pulled out a chair. His voice was different, lighter. "Food's getting cold." Clara sat. Ezra set a plate in front of her: bacon, eggs, biscuits. More food than she'd seen in weeks. Her stomach growled so loud that Lily giggled. "When's the last time you ate?" Ezra asked. Clara tried to remember. "I gave my portions to the children." "That wasn't my question." 4 days. Maybe 5. Ezra's expression didn't change, but something hardened in his eyes. He put another biscuit on her plate. "Eat." Clara ate. After breakfast, Ezra showed them the ranch. "This is Stone Creek," he said, leading them through the snow toward the barn. 500 acres. Used to run cattle, but I've let the herd go down. Just me out here now." "Just you." Thomas walked beside him, matching his stride. "You work all this land alone." "What I can. Rest goes to seed." Ezra pushed open the barn door. Warm air rushed out thick with the smell of horses and hay. Got 6 horses. 3 are work horses. 3 are riding stock. You know how to ride and some. We'll make it more than some. Inside the barn, Samuel tugged on Ezra's coat. Mister, you got a dog. Ezra looked down at him. No. Why not? Dogs die. The words hung in the cold air. Clara saw something flicker across Ezra's face there and gone in an instant. Everything dies, Samuel said solemnly. Papa died. Clara's breath caught, but Ezra just crouched down until he was eye level with the boy. I know, he said quietly. I'm sorry about your pa. Did your papa die? Long time ago. Did you cry? Some? Samuel nodded like this was the right answer. Then he reached out and touched Ezra's scarred hand. You got hurts. Ezra looked at his own hand like he'd never seen it before. War. Did it hurt? Some. I got hurts too. Samuel pulled up his sleeve, showing a fading bruise on his thin arm. The bad man did it. When he grabbed me. Clara's stomach turned. She hadn't known about the bruise. She'd been too busy running to check. Ezra's jaw tightened. What bad man? His name is Brennan, Clara said. Her voice came out harder than she intended. Silas Brennan. He owns half the county back where we came from. She stopped. He what? Clara looked at her children. Thomas's face had gone dark. The twins were huddled together. Even Maggie had stopped sketching. Not in front of them. Ezra nodded slowly. He rose to his feet, winced as his bad leg took his weight, and turned to Thomas. Take your brothers and sisters back to the house. Show them where the water pump is, the outhouse, the chicken coop. Yes, sir. Thomas hesitated. There anything you need us to do? Not today. Today, you rest. Ezra put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Tomorrow we work. Clara watched her children file out of the barn. Thomas walking tall, the twins holding hands. Samuel looking back over his shoulder, waving at Ezra like they were old friends. When they were gone, Ezra closed the barn door. Tell me. Clara wrapped her arms around herself. My husband died 5 weeks ago. William. Mining accident outside Silverton. She paused. They said it was his fault. Said he violated safety protocols, refused to pay anything. Was it his fault? William never violated a rule in his life. Clara's voice shook. He was careful. Always careful. He knew he had mouths to feed. Ezra waited. The mining company is owned by Silas Brennan. Clara spoke the name like it tasted of poison. After the funeral he came to collect. Said William owed money, equipment fees, living expenses. Said the debt transferred to me. How much? $300. A fortune. More than Clara could earn in 5 years of honest work. And when you couldn't pay, he offered me a choice. Clara's jaw tightened. Pay in cash or pay in other ways? Ezra's hands curled into fists. I told him to leave. He came back with a contract, said if I signed my children and I would work his land for 2 years, after that we'd be free. Clara laughed a bitter broken sound. I was desperate, exhausted, alone, so I signed. And then, the next morning his men came for the children, said they'd work the boys in the fields, said the girls would work in the house. Her voice cracked. My Maggie is 11 years old. 11. And the way they looked at her, she couldn't finish. Ezra was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Dangerous. You stabbed one of them. He grabbed Lily, my 8-year-old daughter. He grabbed her and I... Clara's hand went to her side. I had a kitchen knife. I didn't think. I just... You protected your child. I stabbed him in the arm. Not deep, but enough to make him let go. Clara met Ezra's eyes. Enough to run. How far? 3 days. I don't know how many miles. We walked through the night, hid during the day. I thought... She swallowed. I thought if we could just get far enough, maybe he wouldn't follow. He'll follow. Clara's heart sank. I know. A man like that doesn't let go. You wounded his pride, ran from his contract. He'll come. I know. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. That's why we can't stay. She turned toward the barn door. Ezra's hand caught her arm. Mrs. Whitmore. Clara stopped. She hadn't told him her name. He must have gotten it from the children. You're staying. I can't. She pulled away. I won't bring trouble to your door. You've been kinder than anyone in my whole life. But I can't. You're staying. Ezra's voice was firm. I've got walls. I've got guns. And I've got nothing left to lose. He paused. Brennan comes. I'll be ready. Why? Clara's voice broke. Why do you care? We're nothing to you. Ezra was quiet for a long moment. 12 years ago, he said finally. I went to war. Left behind a wife named Sarah, a daughter named Emmeline. She was 5 years old. Clara's breath caught. I was gone 3 years. 3 years fighting a war I didn't believe in a country that didn't care if I lived or died. And while I was gone, his voice cracked. Diphtheria. Swept through like fire, killed them both. I'm sorry. I came home to graves. Ezra's eyes were distant. 2 wooden crosses, weeds growing over them. Nobody thought to. He stopped. Breathed. I wasn't there. When my daughter was scared when my wife was dying, I wasn't there to hold their hands. Wasn't there to say goodbye. Clara's throat tightened. I swore I'd never care about anyone again. Ezra looked at her. Easier that way. Can't lose what you don't have. But then you showed up. His voice dropped. A mother. Children. Exhausted. Afraid. Needing help. He paused. I couldn't look away. Not again. Clara didn't know what to say, so she said the only thing that was true. Thank you. Ezra nodded once. You'll take the bunkhouse, long as you want it. Work the ranch if you're able. I could use the help. I can work? I know. The ghost of a smile crossed his face. Woman who stabs a man to save her daughter, I reckon she can handle a little ranch work. For the first time in weeks, Clara almost laughed. Dad. The days passed. Clara threw herself into work. She scrubbed the main house until it shone. Ezra clearly hadn't touched a rag in years. She mended clothes that had been tossed in corners. She cooked meals that actually had flavor, using herbs she found dried and forgotten in the back of his pantry. You didn't have to do all this, Ezra said one evening, looking around his transformed kitchen. I wanted to. Clara set a plate in front of him. You've given us everything. I've given you a roof. You've given us hope. Clara sat across from him. There's a difference. Ezra said nothing, but he ate every bite on his plate. The children transformed too. Thomas followed Ezra like a shadow, learning to mend fences, tend horses, handle a rifle. He stood straighter now, spoke more. The haunted look in his eyes was fading. Maggie found paints in an old trunk, relics from Ezra's wife, he explained, voice carefully neutral. She started painting on everything. The bunkhouse walls, scraps of wood, the back of the outhouse door, horses and mountains and faces that watched with knowing eyes. The twins regained their energy. They ran through the snow, shrieking with laughter, building snowmen, having snowball fights that ended with everyone soaked and grinning. And Samuel attached himself to Ezra like a burr. Mr. Ezra. Samuel trotted after him everywhere. Mr. Ezra, can I help? Can I carry that? Can I feed the horses? Mr. Ezra, why is that horse brown? Ezra answered every question with patience. Clara didn't know men possessed. He let Samuel help with chores that took twice as long with a 4-year-old's assistance. He carved the boy a little wooden horse to play with, worked on it for 3 nights by the fire hands, steady and careful. One evening, Clara found Samuel in Ezra's lap, asleep, clutching the wooden horse. "Sorry." Clara reached for her son. "He must have worn himself out." "Leave him." Ezra's voice was gruff. "He's fine." Clara paused, looked at the picture they made, the big scarred rancher and the small sleeping boy. Something in her chest ached. "He likes you." "Kids like anyone who feeds them." "No." Clara sat down across from him. "He calls you Mr. Ezra. He hasn't called any man Mr. since his father died. It's respect. It's trust." She didn't say it, but Ezra heard it anyway. "He's a good boy." Ezra's hand rested on Samuel's back, protective. "They all are. You raised them right. Their father raised them. Their father's gone." Ezra met her eyes. "You raised them. Through grief, through fear, through 3 days of walking with nothing to eat and 100 miles of nothing but snow. You kept them alive. You kept them together. That's you." Clara's eyes burned. "I don't know what I'm doing. Half the time I'm just making it up." "That's motherhood." "Is it?" "Best I can tell." Ezra looked down at Samuel. "Sarah used to say the same thing. Said being a mother was just pretending you knew what you were doing and hoping the children didn't notice." It was the first time he'd mentioned his wife by name since the barn. Clara held her breath, afraid to break the moment. Emmeline noticed. A ghost of a smile crossed Ezra's face. She was sharp, 5 years old, and she could see right through you. Used to tell Sarah, "Mama, you don't really know what you're doing, do you?" And Sarah would say, "Not one bit, baby girl. Not one bit." Clara's throat tightened. "She sounds wonderful." She was. Ezra's voice was barely a whisper. They both were. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Samuel shifted in his sleep, murmuring something about horses. "You'll see them again." Clara didn't know why she said it. The words just came. "Someday." Ezra didn't respond, but his hand tightened on Samuel's back, and Clara thought, maybe we're both just making it up as we go. 2 weeks passed. Clara began to believe they were safe, that Brennan had given up, that the snow had covered their tracks so thoroughly that no one would ever find them. She should have known better. It was early morning. Ezra had gone to check the fence line on the north pasture. Clara was in the kitchen, teaching Rose how to knead bread dough. Lily and Maggie were collecting eggs. Thomas was mucking out the horse stalls. Samuel was on the porch playing with his wooden horse. The riders appeared from nowhere. Samuel saw them first. "Mama, men coming?" Clara dropped the dough. She grabbed the rifle from above the door Ezra had taught her to shoot just in case and stepped onto the porch. 3 men, dusty, armed, and at the front, a face she recognized. Jebediah McCraw, Brennan's dog. "Well now," Jeb smiled, showing yellow teeth. "Thought you could run, Mrs. Whitmore. Thought you could hide." Clara's hands tightened on the rifle. "Get off this land." "Now that ain't friendly." Jeb swung down from his horse. His 2 men stayed mounted, hands resting on their pistols. "Mr. Brennan just wants what's owed him, you and those pretty children of yours." "I'll die first." "That can be arranged." Jeb took a step forward. "But Mr. Brennan don't want you dead. He wants you working. So here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna put down that rifle. You're gonna get your kids, and you're gonna come quiet. Nobody gets hurt." "And if I refuse?" Jeb shrugged. "Then we take the children anyway, and we make you watch." Clara's vision went red. Her finger found the trigger. "Mama!" Thomas's voice came from behind her, low, steady. "I'm here." Clara didn't turn. "Get inside, Thomas." "No, ma'am." Thomas! I said no. He stepped up beside her. In his hands was the shotgun Ezra had given him, the one they'd practiced with for hours until his aim was true. His face was white. His hands were shaking. But he didn't run. Jeb laughed. Look at this. A woman and a boy. You think that scares us? Doesn't have to scare you. Thomas's voice cracked, but he didn't lower the gun. Just has to stop you. Boy, I've killed men bigger than you with my bare hands. Then come try. Clara's heart was in her throat. She wanted to scream at Thomas to run, to hide, to save himself, but she knew he wouldn't. Knew her son had become something more than a boy, something harder, something forged in grief and fear and love. Jeb's smile faded. Have it your way. His hand moved toward his gun. A rifle shot cracked across the valley. Jeb's hat flew off his head. He froze, hand hovering over his pistol as a second shot kicked up snow inches from his boots. Next one's in your skull. Clara turned. Ezra Callahan sat on his horse at the edge of the property, rifle aimed at Jeb's heart. His face was carved from stone. His eyes were death. You got 10 seconds to get off my land. Jeb's composure broke. Now wait, we got legal business. 9. Mrs. Whitmore signed a contract. 8. You can't just... 7. Ezra's finger tightened on the trigger. You want to find out what happens at 0? Nobody moved. Clara watched Jeb's face, watched the calculation behind his eyes, watched him weigh his odds and find them wanting. This ain't over, Stone. Jeb backed toward his horse. Mr. Brennan's got law on his side. Papers, rights. You can't shoot your way out of that. Try me. Jeb mounted. His men were already wheeling their horses, eager to be gone. We'll be back. Jeb's voice was hard. With more men. With the sheriff. And when we come, ain't no amount of bullets gonna save you. He rode off. Ezra didn't lower his rifle until the riders were specks on the horizon. Then he turned to Clara. His eyes swept over her, over Thomas, over the children who had gathered on the porch. Anyone hurt? Clara shook her head. She couldn't speak. Good. Ezra dismounted. He walked up the porch steps, rifle in hand, and stopped in front of Thomas. You stood your ground. Thomas's voice shook. Yes, sir. You were scared. Yes, sir. That's good. Ezra put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Being brave don't mean not being scared. It means being scared and standing anyway. He paused. Your father would be proud. Thomas's eyes filled with tears. He didn't wipe them away. Clara finally found her voice. Ezra, they'll come back. I know. With more men, like he said. I know. We should run. We should... No. Ezra's voice was quiet, final. We're done running. He looked at her, at Thomas, at the children huddled together on the porch. They want to fight, I'll give them a fight. His jaw tightened. Nobody touches this family. Not while I'm breathing. Clara's breath caught. This family, he'd said. Not these people. Not your children. This family. She looked at Ezra Callahan, this broken, lonely man who'd opened his doors to strangers, who'd fed them, sheltered them, stood between them and danger without hesitation. And she thought, maybe we're not strangers anymore. Maybe we never were. Kian. That night after the children were asleep, Clara found Ezra on the porch. He was staring at the mountain's rifle across his lap. The moon was full. The snow glowed silver. You should sleep. Clara sat beside him. Can't. His eyes didn't leave the horizon. Keep thinking they'll come back in the dark. They won't. Not tonight. You don't know that. No. Clara pulled her shawl tighter. But I know men like Jeb McCraw. They're cowards. They need orders. They'll go back to Brennan. Tell him what happened. Wait for instructions. And then they'll come in force. Clara's voice was steady. A week, maybe 2, but they'll come. Ezra nodded slowly. Then we have a week. To do what? To prepare. Clara looked at him. The moonlight caught the silver in his hair, the scars on his hands, the tired lines around his eyes. Why are you doing this? Told you already. No. Clara shook her head. You told me why you took us in. You didn't tell me why you're willing to die for us. Ezra was silent for a long moment. 11 years, he said finally. I've been alone for 11 years. After Sarah and Emmeline, I couldn't. I thought if I just stayed alone, if I never let anyone in, I couldn't lose anyone again. Did it work? I didn't lose anyone. His voice was hollow. I also didn't have anyone. Didn't have anything worth losing. Clara's throat tightened. Then you showed up. Ezra turned to look at her. You and your children. Frozen. Starving. Fighting to survive. And I thought... He paused. I thought there's something worth fighting for. Something worth living for. His voice dropped. Something worth dying for. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I don't want you to die for us. I'm not planning on it. The corner of his mouth twitched. I'm planning on winning. And if you can't? Ezra reached over. His rough hand closed over hers. Then I'll die knowing I finally did something that mattered. Clara couldn't speak. She just held his hand in the moonlight and felt something shift inside her chest. Something like hope. Something like home. The week that followed changed everything. Clara woke before dawn each morning, her body refusing to waste a single hour. She found Ezra already in the barn checking ammunition, reinforcing doors, preparing for a war he seemed certain was coming. You don't sleep, she said on the third morning. Neither do you. I have 5 children to worry about. Ezra paused, rifle in hand. So do I. Clara's breath caught. She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. But something warm spread through her chest, and she carried it with her all day. Thomas worked beside Ezra from sunup to sundown. The boy had grown 3 inches in 2 weeks, or maybe he just stood taller. He learned to shoot straight, to ride hard, to read the land like a book. You're good at this, Ezra told him one afternoon. My pa taught me some. Your pa taught you the basics. The rest is in your blood. Thomas's jaw tightened. You think they're really coming? I know they are. How many? Don't matter. Ezra handed him a box of cartridges. What matters is, we're ready. Are we? Ezra looked at the boy. Really looked. We will be. That night, Clara found Thomas on the bunkhouse porch staring at nothing. You should be sleeping, she said. Can't. Clara sat beside him. Her eldest. Her firstborn. The baby she'd held 14 years ago, terrified and alone, and certain she'd break him. Talk to me. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. What if I can't protect them? Who? The girls. Samuel. You. His voice cracked. Pa's gone. I'm supposed to be the man now, but I'm just... He stopped. Just what? Scared. The word came out like a confession. I'm scared all the time, Ma. I wake up scared. I go to sleep scared. And I can't let anyone see, because if they see, they'll be scared too, and then... Clara pulled him close. He resisted for a moment, then collapsed against her, shaking. You're not supposed to be the man, she whispered. You're supposed to be 14. But Pa, your father was a grown man with 20 years on you. He didn't expect you to take his place. He expected you to live. Thomas's shoulders heaved. I don't know how. Without him, I don't know how. Clara held her son tighter. Neither do I, baby. Neither do I. They stayed like that until the stars came out. And when Thomas finally pulled away, something in his eyes had softened. Mr. Callahan, he said quietly. He's a good man. Yes. He looks at you different. Clara's heart stuttered. What do you mean? Like Pa used to look at you? Thomas stood. I ain't saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, I see it. He paused at the door. And I don't think it's a bad thing. He went inside. Clara sat alone in the darkness, Thomas's words echoing in her head. Like Pa used to look at you. She thought about Ezra's hand on hers, his voice in the moonlight, the way he said, "this family," like it meant something sacred. And she wondered if maybe, just maybe, hope wasn't such a dangerous thing after all. The 5th day brought visitors. Clara was hanging laundry when the wagon appeared. Her hands went still on the clothesline. Her eyes found the rifle leaning against the porch rail. But Ezra was already walking toward the road, and his posture wasn't tense. It was welcoming. The wagon stopped. An old woman climbed down, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, her eyes sharp as broken glass. Ezra Callahan. Her voice was gravel and smoke. 11 years and you finally got something worth visiting. Agnes. Ezra actually smiled. Didn't expect you. Course you didn't. You never expect anything good. The old woman turned to Clara. Her eyes swept from head to toe. This the widow? Clara straightened. I'm Clara Whitmore. I know who you are. Whole town knows who you are. Agnes stepped closer. Heard you stabbed one of Brennan's men. That true? Clara's chin lifted. He was grabbing my daughter. Agnes stared at her for a long moment. Then she laughed, a rough, rasping sound like wind through dead leaves. I like her, Ezra. First interesting thing you've done in a decade. Agnes runs the general store in town, Ezra explained, and she knows everything about everyone. Damn right I do. Agnes turned back to Clara. Which is why I'm here. Brennan's been talking, loudly, saying you stole from him, broke a legal contract, says he's coming to collect what's owed. Clara's stomach dropped. When? 3 days, maybe 4, he's gathering men, offering good money for guns willing to ride. Agnes's eyes hardened. Last count he had 12. 12. Clara looked at Ezra. His face hadn't changed, but she saw his hand tighten on his rifle. We can't fight 12 men, she whispered. No. Agnes pulled a paper from her coat. But maybe you won't have to. She handed the paper to Ezra. He unfolded it, read it, and went very still. Where did you get this? Brennan's office. Don't ask how. Clara moved closer. What is it? Ezra showed her. A ledger page, names and numbers. And at the bottom, something that made her blood freeze. Practice signatures. Dozens of them, including one that looked exactly like her own handwriting. He forged the contract, Clara breathed. He forges all of them. Agnes's voice was grim. Been doing it for years. Traps families in debt they don't owe, makes them work his land for free. Your husband didn't owe a dime, Mrs. Whitmore. None of them did. Clara's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the porch steps, the paper shaking in her hands. All of it. The contract, the debt, the terror. All of it was a lie. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would he do this? Because he can. Agnes spat in the dirt. Because nobody stops him. Because the law looks the other way as long as his money keeps flowing. Ezra's voice was quiet, dangerous. Does the sheriff know? Tucker. Agnes shrugged. Hard to say. He's not in Brennan's pocket, but he's not exactly fighting him either. Stays neutral, keeps his head down. If we showed him this, it'd be your word against Brennan's. One piece of paper against a man who owns half the county. Agnes shook her head. You'd need more. Witnesses. Other families willing to talk. And most of them are too scared. Clara looked up. Most of them? Agnes's eyes glinted. I said most, not all. The old woman stayed for dinner. Clara watched her with the children, gruff but gentle, answering their questions with patience, slipping extra biscuits onto Samuel's plate when she thought no one was looking. "You have children?" Clara asked quietly. "Had." Agnes's voice didn't waver. "Son, died in the war. Daughter, fever took her." She paused. "Husband drank himself to death after that. Can't say I blamed him." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Was a long time ago." Agnes looked at Ezra, who was helping Thomas clean the dishes. "He told you about Sarah and Emmeline?" "Yes." "Good." Agnes nodded slowly. "Man's been dead inside for 11 years. Walking around breathing but dead." She turned to Clara. "First time I've seen him alive since I buried his wife." Clara didn't know what to say. "Don't break him." Agnes's voice was soft but fierce. "Whatever happens, whatever you decide, don't break him. He won't survive it twice." Clara watched Ezra laugh at something Thomas said. Watched Samuel climb into his lap without asking. Watched Maggie show him her latest drawing, waiting for his approval with anxious eyes. "I won't," she whispered. "I promise." Agnes left at sunset with a list of names. "These are the families," she told Clara. "The ones Brennan trapped. Some might talk, some might not. But if you can get enough of them together, if you can prove a pattern—" She shrugged. "Might be enough to bring him down. And if it isn't, then you fight." Agnes climbed onto her wagon. "And you pray." She was gone before Clara could respond. That night, Ezra found Clara in the barn, reading the names by lantern light. 12 families, she said without looking up. 12 families he's destroyed. And those are just the ones Agnes knows about. Clara's hands clenched. How does a man do this? How does he sleep at night? Men like Brennan don't think of people as people. Ezra sat beside her. They think of them as things, resources, tools to be used. And nobody stops him. Nobody's tried. Clara looked at him. Until now. Ezra held her gaze. Until now. Something passed between them. An understanding, a decision. "We go to town tomorrow," Clara said. "Talk to these families. Find out who's willing to stand. It's dangerous. Brennan has eyes everywhere. So we're careful." Ezra studied her for a long moment. "You've changed." "What do you mean?" 3 weeks ago, you showed up at my door, more dead than alive. Now you're talking about taking down the most powerful man in the county." The corner of his mouth twitched. "What happened?" Clara thought about it. About the fear that had driven her across 3 days of frozen wilderness. About the despair that had nearly swallowed her whole. And about the man who'd pulled her back from the edge. "I stopped running," she said finally. "You taught me that. I didn't teach you anything. You taught me everything." Clara reached for his hand. "You showed me that some fights are worth having, some stands are worth taking, even if you lose." Ezra's fingers closed around hers, warm, strong, steady. "We're not going to lose," he said quietly. "You don't know that." "No." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "But I know I'd rather die fighting beside you than live another day hiding from the world." Clara's heart cracked open. She leaned forward. Ezra went still. And for one endless moment, they were inches apart, breath mingling the lantern-casting shadows on the walls. "Mama!" Clara jerked back. Samuel stood in the barn doorway, wooden horse clutched to his chest, tears streaming down his face. "What is it, baby?" Clara was on her feet instantly. "Bad dream." Samuel's voice wobbled. "The bad man was taking Lily, and you couldn't stop him. And Clara scooped him up, holding him tight. "It was just a dream, baby. Nobody's taking anyone." "Promise." Clara looked at Ezra over Samuel's head. "Promise," they said together. The next morning they rode into Copper Falls. Clara left the children with Thomas, who'd argued fiercely about coming along. But Ezra had been firm. Your job is to protect your family. That's what a man does. Thomas had wanted to argue more, but something in Ezra's voice stopped him. Yes, sir. If anyone comes while we're gone, you know what to do. Bar the doors, keep everyone inside, fire warning shots if they get close. And if they don't stop. Thomas's jaw tightened. Shoot to kill. Ezra put a hand on his shoulder. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. The ride to town took 2 hours. Clara hadn't been on a horse in years, but her body remembered. Ezra rode beside her rifle across his lap, eyes constantly scanning. You expecting trouble? Always. Copper Falls was smaller than Clara expected. A single main street, a handful of buildings, the kind of town that could dry up and blow away without anyone noticing. Agnes's store was at the far end, a weathered building with McAllister's General painted above the door. They dismounted and tied the horses. Let me do the talking, Ezra said. Why? Because these people know me. They don't know you. They know of me. Agnes said so. Knowing of someone and trusting them are different things. Clara wanted to argue, but he was right. Fine, but I'm not staying silent if they need to hear from me. Wouldn't expect anything less. Inside, Agnes was waiting. With her were 2 other people, a tired-looking man in his 40s and a woman about Clara's age with haunted eyes. This is Henry Dawson, Agnes said, and his wife Ruth. Brennan took their farm 3 years ago. They've been working his land ever since. Henry stepped forward. His handshake was weak. His eyes wouldn't meet Clara's. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm sorry for what you've been through. I'm sorry for what you've been through. Henry's wife spoke up. Agnes says you have proof, that the contracts are forged. 1 piece of proof. Clara pulled out the ledger page. But if others come forward, others are too scared. Henry's voice was bitter. Brennan owns the sheriff, owns the judge, owns everyone who matters. He doesn't own me, Ezra said quietly. Henry looked at him. Something flickered in his tired eyes. Callahan, I've heard about you. They say you're crazy enough to fight him. Not crazy, just tired of watching good people suffer. Ruth stepped closer. Her hands were shaking. If we talk, he'll know. He always knows. And then... She couldn't finish. Clara took her hand. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. 3 weeks ago, I stabbed one of his men and ran. I've been looking over my shoulder ever since. Then why are you doing this? Because I have 5 children. And I will not let them grow up in a world where men like Brennan win. Clara's voice hardened. I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. And I'm asking you to be done too. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. She's right. Henry's voice was barely a whisper. Ruth, she's right. We've been slaves for 3 years, working ourselves to death on land that used to be ours. And for what? So Brennan can get richer. He'll kill us. Maybe. Henry looked at Ezra. Or maybe he won't. Maybe if enough of us stand together, he won't be able to touch any of us. That's a big maybe. It's all we've got. Ruth was silent for a long moment. Then she squeezed Clara's hand. Who else is on your list? They spent the day going door to door. Some families refused to even let them inside. Some listened, but shook their heads too broken to believe in hope anymore. But a few said yes. By sunset, they had 6 families. It's not enough, Clara said as they rode back to the ranch. Brennan has 12 men. We have what a handful of farmers too scared to hold a gun. We have more than that. Ezra's voice was calm. We have truth on our side. Truth doesn't stop bullets. No, but it stops men who fire them. He looked at her. Most of Brennan's hired guns don't care about him. They care about money. If we can show them what he really is, some might walk away. And the ones who don't. Ezra's jaw tightened. Then we fight. They crested the hill. The ranch came into view, and Clara's heart stopped. Smoke was rising from the bunkhouse. Ezra kicked his horse into a gallop. Clara followed, terror clawing at her throat. Please, please. Not the children. Please. They thundered into the yard. Thomas burst out of the main house, face streaked with soot. Someone threw a torch, he gasped. While we weren't looking, hit the bunkhouse roof. Clara grabbed his shoulders. The children. Inside, safe. We got the fire out, but... Clara didn't hear the rest. She was already running into the house. They were there. All of them. Maggie holding the twins. Samuel curled in the corner, scared, crying, but alive. Clara fell to her knees and gathered them in her arms. I'm here. I'm here. You're safe. I'm here. Ezra appeared in the doorway. His face was pale. In his hand was a piece of paper. They left a message. Clara took it with shaking hands. The words were scrawled in rough letters, last warning. Next time, it's the children. Something broke inside Clara. Not broke, hardened. She stood, walked to the fireplace, and threw the note into the flames. Clara. No more warnings. Her voice was ice. No more waiting, no more fear. She turned to Ezra. How long until he comes? 2 days, maybe less. Then we have 2 days to get ready. We can't fight 12 men, not even with the families. Then we don't fight fair. Clara's eyes blazed. We fight smart. We fight dirty. We use every advantage we have. Ezra stared at her. What are you thinking? Clara looked at her children, at Thomas covered in soot but standing tall, at Maggie sketching furiously in the corner, processing fear the only way she knew how, at the twins holding hands, finding courage in each other, at Samuel still clutching his wooden horse, still believing in heroes. I'm thinking Brennan made a mistake, she said quietly. He thought if he scared me enough I'd run. He thought if he threatened my children I'd break. Her voice dropped. He was wrong. Ezra moved closer. What do you need? Clara met his eyes. I need you to trust me. I already do. Then help me end this. Ezra looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. What's the plan? Clara told him. By midnight, messages had been sent. By dawn, the families were gathering. By noon, Stone Creek Ranch had become a fortress. Henry Dawson arrived first with his wife and 2 sons, both old enough to shoot. The Morrison family came next, a widow with 3 grown daughters who handled rifles better than most men. The Tanners, the Kellys, the Pruitts. 12 families in all, not fighters, farmers, shopkeepers, people who'd been beaten down so long they'd forgotten how to stand. Clara reminded them. They think we're weak, she told them gathered in Ezra's front room. They think because we're poor, because we're tired, because we've lost so much, we won't fight back. Her voice rang out. They're wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Brennan forged our contracts. He stole our land. He took our dignity and told us we should be grateful he left us our lives. Clara held up the ledger page. This is proof. This is evidence. And with your testimony, we can bring him down. And if we can't, someone called out, then we fight. Clara's chin lifted. We fight for our children. We fight for our homes. We fight because no one else will fight for us. Silence. Then Henry Dawson stepped forward. I'm in. Ruth took his hand. We both are. One by one they came. The Morrisons, the Tanners, all of them. By sunset they had an army, not a real army, a ragtag collection of desperate people with nothing left to lose, but an army nonetheless. That night Ezra found Clara on the porch again. You did something today, he said quietly. I gave a speech. You gave them hope. He sat beside her. Most of these people haven't felt hope in years. You gave it back to them. Clara leaned against his shoulder. She was tired, So tired. But for the first time in weeks, it was a good tired. The kind that came from fighting for something that mattered. "Brennan's coming tomorrow," she said. "I know. We might lose." "I know that too." Clara turned to look at him. "Are you scared?" Ezra was quiet for a long moment. "I spent 11 years being scared," he said finally. "Scared of living. Scared of feeling. Scared of losing someone again." He looked at her. "I'm not scared anymore." "Why not?" "Because I finally have something worth dying for." His hand found hers. "And someone worth living for." Clara's breath caught. "Ezra, I know the timing's wrong. I know we might not survive tomorrow. I know you're still grieving your husband, and I'm still carrying my ghosts." His voice dropped. "But I need you to know, whatever happens, you brought me back to life, you and your children, and I will fight for you until my last breath." Clara's eyes filled with tears. She didn't speak. Words weren't enough. Instead, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft, tender, full of everything they couldn't say, promise and fear and hope all tangled together. When they pulled apart, Ezra's forehead rested against hers. "We're going to survive this," he whispered. "You don't know that." "No." His hand cupped her face. "But I believe it. And right now that's enough." Clara closed her eyes. Tomorrow Brennan would come with his army. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight, she was in the arms of a man who'd given her everything. And for one perfect moment, that was all that mattered. The sound of hoofbeats shattered the silence. Clara's eyes flew open. Ezra was already on his feet, rifle in hand. "Stay here." "Like hell." They moved together toward the gate. A single rider emerged from the darkness, hands raised high. "Don't shoot. It's Tucker." The sheriff. Clara's blood ran cold. "It's a trap." "Maybe." Ezra didn't lower his rifle. "Maybe not." Sheriff Wallace Tucker dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible. He was older than Clara expected, tired, worn down by years of looking the other way. "Callahan, Mrs. Whitmore." He nodded to each of them. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About tomorrow." Tucker's voice was heavy. "Brennan's not bringing 12 men. He's bringing 20. And he's got papers. Legal papers. Signed by Judge Morrison himself." Clara's stomach dropped. "Morrison's in his pocket." "Morrison's been in his pocket for years." Tucker stepped closer. "Look, I know what you're planning. I know about the families, the evidence, all of it." Ezra's finger tightened on the trigger. "And you came to warn Brennan. I came to warn you." Tucker's eyes were fierce. "I've spent 10 years watching that man destroy people. Watching him steal and lie and murder his way to the top. And I did nothing. Because I was scared. Because I had a family to protect. Because I told myself it wasn't my fight." "What changed?" Tucker looked at Clara. "You did. Word got around about what you're doing. About the families standing together. About the proof you've got." He paused. "My daughter's 16. Same age as one of the girls Brennan. Took advantage of. Last year. Paid off the family to keep quiet." Clara's hands clenched. "I should have stopped him then. I didn't." Tucker's voice cracked. "But I'm stopping him now." "How?" "I'm the sheriff. Those papers Brennan's got, they need my signature to be enforceable. The judge can sign all he wants, but without me they're worthless." Tucker reached into his coat. Ezra raised the rifle. "Easy." Tucker pulled out a folded document. "This is a warrant for Silas Brennan's arrest, signed by me. Official and legal." Clara took the paper, Her hands were shaking. On what charges? Forgery, fraud, conspiracy. Tucker's jaw tightened. And murder. That mining accident that killed your husband I've been digging. Brennan ordered the supports weakened, wanted to save money, knew men would die. Clara's knees buckled. Ezra caught her, held her up. His voice was rough when he spoke. You're sure? I'm sure. Tucker put his hat back on. Tomorrow when Brennan comes, I'll be here. With 6 deputies. Good men. Men I trust. He looked at Clara. We're going to end this, Mrs. Whitmore. Together. Clara couldn't speak. Her mind was reeling. William, her William, murdered. Not an accident. Murder. Clara. Ezra's voice was gentle. Clara, look at me. She looked. We're going to make him pay, Ezra said quietly. For everything. For William. For you. For every family he destroyed. Clara nodded slowly. Yes, she whispered. We are. Tucker mounted his horse. Dawn. That's when he's coming. Be ready. We will. The sheriff rode off into the darkness. Clara stood frozen, the warrant clutched in her hands, the truth burning in her chest. Her husband was murdered. And tomorrow she would face his killer. Ezra's arms wrapped around her from behind. Strong. Steady. Holding her together when everything inside her was falling apart. I'm here, he whispered. Whatever you need. I'm here. Clara turned in his embrace, buried her face against his chest, and for the first time since William died, she let herself completely break down. She cried for her husband, for her children, for the life she'd lost, and the future she'd nearly surrendered. She cried for the man holding her broken and healing and brave. She cried for herself, the woman she'd been, and the woman she was becoming. And when the tears finally stopped, she looked up at Ezra with red eyes and a heart full of fire. Tomorrow, she said, we end this. Together. Together. The word hung between them like a vow. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming. Dawn came cold and gray. Clara hadn't slept. She'd spent the night preparing checking rifles, counting ammunition, making sure every window was barricaded, every door reinforced. Her hands moved automatically, while her mind burned with a single thought. William was murdered. Brennan killed him. And today, she would face his killer. The families gathered in Ezra's front room as the first light broke over the mountains. 37 people in all. Men, women, even some children old enough to hold a weapon. Not soldiers, not fighters, just people who'd finally had enough. Clara looked at their faces. Fear, determination, hope. She understood all of it. They're coming, Thomas said from the window. I can see dust on the road. Clara moved to stand beside Ezra. His hand found hers, squeezed once, then let go. Remember what we planned, she said to the room. Nobody fires until I give the word. We're not murderers. We're not criminals. We're citizens defending our homes. And if they fire first, Henry Dawson asked, then we fire back. The room went silent. Clara walked to the door, rifle in hand. Ezra followed. You should stay inside, he said quietly. No. Clara. He killed my husband. Her voice was steel. I'm going to look him in the eye when we take him down. Ezra didn't argue. He knew better. They stepped onto the porch together. The riders appeared at the edge of the property. 20 men, just as Tucker had said, armed to the teeth. And at the front, mounted on a black horse, sat Silas Brennan. Clara had never seen him up close. She'd only heard stories. But the reality was worse than she'd imagined. Fat, red-faced, eyes like a snake's, cold and calculating, and utterly without mercy. He smiled when he saw her. Mrs. Whitmore. His voice carried across the frozen air. I've been looking for you. I know. Brennan's smile widened. You've caused me a great deal of trouble, running off like that. Stabbing my man. Stirring up all this. He waved a hand. Rebellion. Your man was trying to take my daughter. Your daughter is my property, as are you, as are all those children. Brennan pulled a paper from his coat. I have a contract, Mrs. Whitmore, signed by you, witnessed by my attorney, approved by Judge Morrison himself. That contract is forged. Brennan's eyes flickered, just for a moment. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Clara held up the ledger page. I have proof, practice signatures, dozens of them, including mine. Murmurs rippled through Brennan's men. Some of them shifted in their saddles, exchanging glances. Where did you get that? Brennan's voice had lost some of its smoothness. Does it matter? That document is stolen property. This document is evidence, Clara's voice rang out. Evidence of forgery, fraud, and murder. Brennan went still. Murder. My husband didn't die in an accident. Clara's hands shook, but her voice didn't. You ordered those mine supports weakened. You knew they'd collapse. You killed him. That's absurd. Is it? A new voice. Sheriff Tucker rode out from behind the barn, 6 deputies at his back. Because I've got 3 witnesses who say otherwise, Brennan. 3 men who helped you do it. Men who are very eager to talk in exchange for their freedom. Brennan's face went white, then red, then purple. Tucker, what the hell do you think you're doing? My job. Tucker pulled out the warrant. Silas Brennan, you're under arrest for forgery, fraud, conspiracy, and the murder of William Whitmore. Nobody moved. Brennan's men looked at each other. Some of them lowered their weapons. Others raised them higher. You can't be serious, Brennan sputtered. I own this county. I own you. Not anymore. Tucker's voice was calm. It's over, Brennan. Come quietly and maybe the judge will show mercy. Mercy. Brennan laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. You want to talk about mercy? He turned to his men. Kill them. Kill them all. Anyone who survives, I'll pay double. For one terrible moment, Clara thought it would work. Thought the promise of money would override everything else. Then Jebediah McCraw lowered his rifle. No. Brennan spun toward him. What did you say? I said no. Jeb looked at Tucker at the warrant in his hand. I hired on to collect debts, not to commit murder, not to cover up murder. He looked at Clara. I got a mother somewhere, sisters. I ain't shooting a woman protecting her children. I'll triple your pay. Keep your money. Jeb dismounted, walked toward the sheriff. I'll testify. Everything I know about Brennan's operation. The forgeries, the beatings, the families he destroyed. He paused. The mine. You son of a... Brennan reached for his pistol. Ezra was faster. His rifle shot cracked across the valley. Brennan screamed, clutching his hand. The pistol fell into the snow. Don't, Ezra said quietly. Just don't. Brennan's men scattered. Some dropped their weapons and raised their hands. Some wheeled their horses and fled. Within minutes, only a handful remained, the loyal ones. The stupid ones, the ones too invested to walk away. This isn't over, Brennan screamed. You think you can just shut up? Tucker rode forward and grabbed Brennan's reins. You have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you use it. Clara watched them cuff him, watched them drag him off his horse, watched the most powerful man in the county brought low in the snow. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like justice, cold and hard and necessary. She walked forward. Brennan looked up at her, eyes full of hatred. My husband, she said quietly. His name was William. He was a good man, a kind man. He loved his children more than anything in the world. Her voice cracked. And you killed him for money. Brennan said nothing. I want you to remember his name. Clara leaned closer. When you're rotting in prison, when you're waiting for the hangman, I want you to remember William Whitmore. I want you to remember what you did to him. To us. To all of us. You think this changes anything? Brennan's voice was a snarl. You think you've won? I have lawyers, connections, money. I'll be out in a month. Maybe. Clara straightened. Or maybe you'll hang. Either way, you're done. Your empire is finished, and every family you destroyed will know the truth. She turned away. That's enough for me. She walked back toward the porch and stopped. Samuel was standing in the doorway, wooden horse clutched to his chest, eyes wide with terror. Mama! Clara's heart shattered. He'd seen everything. Her baby boy had watched her face down. A murderer watched guns being fired, watched violence explode around him. She ran to him, scooped him up, held him so tight she could feel his heart pounding against hers. It's over, baby. It's over. You're safe. Was that the bad man? Yes. Is he going away? Yes. Forever. Samuel was quiet for a moment. Then he looked up at her with William's eyes. Good. Clara laughed. It came out broken and wet, but it was still a laugh. Yeah, baby. Good. The aftermath was chaos. Tucker's deputies rounded up Brennan's remaining men. The families emerged from the house crying and hugging and staring at each other like they couldn't believe it was real, because it didn't feel real. After years of fear, after weeks of running after a night of preparation for a battle that never came, it was over. Just like that. Over. Clara stood in the middle of it all, numb. Ezra found her. Hey. His voice was gentle. You okay? I don't know. Clara looked at her hands. They were shaking. I thought there'd be more. More fighting. More blood. I thought... You thought you'd have to kill him yourself. Clara nodded slowly. Would you have... She didn't answer, because she didn't know. Come on. Ezra took her hand. Let's get you inside. The children? Thomas has them. They're fine. He led her toward the barn, away from the crowds, away from the noise. You need a minute. The barn was quiet, warm. The horses shifted in their stalls, unconcerned with the drama outside. Clara leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. He killed William. I know. I didn't even get to say goodbye. He left for work that morning, kissed me on the cheek, said he'd be home for supper. Her voice broke. He never came home. Ezra pulled her into his arms. I spent 5 weeks thinking it was an accident, thinking if he'd just been more careful, if he'd just followed the rules. Clara's shoulders shook. It wasn't his fault. None of it was his fault. No, it wasn't. I blamed him. The words came out like poison. Part of me blamed him for leaving us, for dying, for not being there when we needed him. That's normal. It's not fair. Clara pulled back, tears streaming. He was a good man. He didn't deserve what happened. He didn't deserve me blaming him. Ezra cupped her face in his rough hands. Listen to me. William loved you. Anyone could see that. And if he's watching from wherever the dead go, he's not angry. He's proud. Proud of what you did today. Proud of how you protected his children. Proud of the woman you've become. You didn't know him. I know you, and I know you wouldn't love a man who'd hold your grief against you. Clara stared at him. You're a good man, Ezra Callahan. I'm trying to be. No. Clara shook her head. You already are. You've been good to me, to my children, to everyone who needed you. She paused. William would have liked you. Ezra's throat worked. Yeah. Clara managed a small smile. He would have said you talk too little and brood too much, but he would have liked you. Sounds about right? They stood in silence for a moment. The chaos outside felt far away. In here, it was just the two of them, breathing the same air, holding each other up. What happens now? Clara asked. Tucker takes Brennan to the county seat. There'll be a trial. With the evidence, we have the testimonies from the families. Ezra shrugged. He'll hang. And the families, the ones he enslaved, they get their land back. Their contracts are void. Agnes is already working with a lawyer from Denver. Clara nodded slowly. And us? Ezra was quiet for a long moment. That depends on you. Clara looked up at him. I meant what I said last night. Ezra continued. About you. About how you brought me back to life. He paused. But I also know you're grieving. I know it's too soon. I know. Clara kissed him. It wasn't like the kiss on the porch. That one had been soft, tentative, a question. This one was an answer. When they finally pulled apart, Ezra's eyes were wide. Clara. I don't know what the future holds, she said. I don't know if I'm ready for whatever this is, but I know I don't want to leave. I know my children are happy here. I know. She touched his face. I know you make me feel safe, and hopeful, and alive. That's enough. That's everything. Ezra kissed her again, deeper this time, fuller, a promise sealed in breath and touch. The barn door creaked. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Samuel stood in the doorway, wooden horse dangling from one hand. Mama, Mr. Ezra. His voice was suspicious. What are you doing? Clara's face burned. Nothing, baby, just talking. Your faces are red. It's cold in here. Samuel considered this. Then he walked over to Ezra and tugged on his coat. Mr. Ezra? Yeah, son. Are you going to be my new papa? Clara's breath caught. Ezra knelt down until he was eye level with the boy. His voice was careful when he spoke. Would that be okay with you? Samuel thought about it. Really thought the way only a 4-year-old could. My papa's in heaven, he said finally. He can't come back. No, he can't. But he'd want someone to take care of us. He told me once. Said if anything happened to him, he wanted Mama to find someone good. Samuel looked up at Ezra with serious eyes. Are you good? I try to be. Do you love Mama? Ezra glanced at Clara. His eyes said everything his voice couldn't. Yes. Do you love me? Yes. Do you love Thomas and Maggie and Lily and Rose? Yes. Samuel nodded slowly. Then he held out his wooden horse. You can call me son, but only if you promise to stay forever. Ezra took the horse. His hands were shaking. I promise. Samuel smiled, the first real smile Clara had seen from him since William died. Okay then. He grabbed Ezra's hand and started pulling him toward the door. Come on. Thomas caught a rabbit and we're having stew, and you have to sit next to me at dinner. Clara watched them go, her heart so full it hurt. Maybe this was what healing looked like. Not forgetting the past, but making room for the future. Not replacing what was lost, but building something new from the wreckage. She followed them out of the barn. The sun had broken through the clouds. The days that followed were full of work. Tucker returned from the county seat with news. Brennan's trial would be in 2 months. Until then, he'd rot in a cell stripped of his money, his power, his ability to hurt anyone ever again. The families began rebuilding. Henry Dawson and his wife Ruth moved back to their farm, tears streaming as they walked through the door of the home they'd been forced to abandon. The Morrisons reclaimed their land, the Tanners, the Kellys. One by one, the broken pieces of the community started coming back together. Agnes appointed herself unofficial coordinator of the recovery effort. She bullied lawyers, badgered officials, and generally terrorized anyone who stood in the way of justice. That woman is terrifying, Ezra said one evening. Clara smiled. That woman is why we won. Fair point. At Stone Creek Ranch, life settled into a rhythm. Thomas worked the land alongside Ezra, no longer a boy, pretending to be a man, but something in between, growing into himself, finding his place. He still had nightmares sometimes, still woke up swinging at shadows, but the haunted look in his eyes was fading. Maggie turned the bunkhouse into an art studio. Her paintings covered every wall, horses and mountains and faces that seemed to breathe. A gallery owner from Helena came to see them after hearing rumors of a prodigy in the wilderness. He left with 3 paintings and a promise to return for more. The twins were the twins, loud and laughing and constantly underfoot. They'd adopted every barn cat on the property and were lobbying hard for a dog. "Every ranch needs a dog," Lily argued at dinner one night. "Dogs are work," Ezra said. "We'll take care of it, we promise." "That's what you said about the chickens." "The chickens are fine. The chickens are traumatized." "That's not our fault. That's because Maggie keeps drawing them." Clara hid her smile behind her coffee cup. These arguments had become ritual, comfortable, the sound of a family being a family. And Samuel. Samuel had stopped calling Ezra Mr. Ezra. Now it was just Ezra. Sometimes when he thought no one was listening, it was Papa. Ezra never corrected him. One evening, Clara found them on the porch, Samuel in Ezra's lap, looking at the stars. "That one's the Big Dipper," Ezra was saying. "See how it looks like a cup with a handle? I see it. And that one over there, that bright one, that's the North Star. You ever get lost, you follow that star. It'll lead you home. What if it's cloudy? Then you wait for the clouds to clear. What if they never clear?" Ezra was quiet for a moment. "Then you find another way home." Samuel considered this. "I don't want to get lost." "You won't. Promise. Promise." Ezra tightened his arms around the boy. "Long as I'm around, you'll never be lost." Clara's throat ached with unshed tears. She thought about William, about how much he would have loved this, loved seeing his children safe, loved knowing they'd found someone to watch over them. "I hope you can see this," she thought. "I hope wherever you are, you know they're okay." A breeze rustled through the trees, soft, gentle, almost like an answer. Clara closed her eyes and let herself believe. 3 weeks after Brennan's arrest, a letter arrived. Clara recognized the handwriting on the envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Dear Mrs. Whitmore, my name is James Hartley. I was a foreman at the Silverton mine. I worked alongside your husband for 2 years before the accident. I need you to know that William was the best man I ever met. He looked out for everyone, shared his lunch when others forgot theirs, spoke up when the bosses pushed too hard. That's why Brennan wanted him gone." The week before the collapse, William reported safety violations to the state inspector. He documented everything. Brennan found out. "I believe he ordered the supports weakened as revenge. I was too scared to speak up before. But I heard what you did, how you brought him down, and I can't stay silent anymore. I've sent copies of William's original reports to Sheriff Tucker. They prove he was trying to protect us. They prove he died doing the right thing. Your husband was a hero, Mrs. Whitmore. I hope someday his children know that. With deepest respect, James Hartley." Clara read the letter 3 times. Then she walked to William's grave. It was a small marker at the edge of the property near the cottonwood tree where she'd collapsed that first day. Ezra had helped her put it up, a simple wooden cross with William's name and dates. She knelt in the cold snow. "I got a letter today," she said quietly, "from a man who worked with you. He said you were a hero, that you died trying to protect people." Her voice cracked. "I always knew you were good, but I didn't know how good until now." The wind whispered through the bare branches. "The children are okay. Thomas is becoming a man you'd be proud of. Maggie's painting is getting better every day. The twins are still troublemakers." Clara smiled through her tears. "And Samuel? Samuel's found someone to look up to. Someone who loves him almost as much as you did." She touched the wooden cross. "I found someone too. His name is Ezra. He's kind and strong and broken in all the same places I am. He makes me feel safe." She paused. "I think you'd like him. I think you'd be glad I found him." A bird sang somewhere in the distance. "I'm going to be okay, William. We're all going to be okay. Not because of me, because of you. Because you loved us enough to fight for what was right." Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. "Thank you. For everything. For our children. For our years together. For being the kind of man worth mourning." She stood, wiped her eyes. "Rest now. We've got it from here." She walked back toward the house. Ezra was waiting on the porch. "You okay?" Clara took his hand. "Yeah," she said. "I am." That night the family gathered around the fire. All of them. Thomas and Maggie and the twins and Samuel. Ezra in his usual chair. Clara at his side. "I want to tell you something," Clara said. "About your father." The children went quiet. "A letter came today. From a man who worked with him." Clara pulled out the paper. "Your father wasn't just a miner. He was a hero. He saw things at the mine that weren't right, dangerous things, things that could hurt people. And instead of looking away, he reported them. He stood up. He fought." "Is that why he died?" Thomas's voice was rough. "Yes." Clara didn't soften the truth. "The man who owned the mine, Brennan, found out what your father did, and he punished him for it." Maggie's eyes filled with tears. "Papa died because he was good. Papa died because he was brave, because he couldn't watch other people get hurt and do nothing." Clara looked at each of her children. "That's who your father was. That's who he'll always be." Samuel tugged on Ezra's sleeve. "Papa Ezra. Did you know my other papa?" Ezra shook his head. "No, son, I didn't." "But you would have liked him." "I know I would have." Ezra's voice was thick. "Because I know you, and Thomas, and your sisters. I know your mama, and all of you are good and brave and kind." He paused. "That doesn't come from nowhere. That came from him." Samuel nodded solemnly. Then he climbed into Ezra's lap and leaned against his chest. "I have two papas now," he said quietly. "One in heaven and one here." Clara's heart cracked open. "That's right, baby. That's exactly right." Thomas stood, walked to the fireplace, stared into the flames. "I was angry at him," he said finally, "for dying, for leaving us. I thought—" He stopped, breathed. "I thought if he'd just been more careful, more smart, he'd still be here." "I thought that too," Clara admitted. "But he wasn't careless. He wasn't stupid." Thomas turned around. His eyes were wet. "He was fighting, just like we did." "Yes." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'm going to be like him," he said. "When I grow up, I'm going to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. I'm going to fight for what's right." "You already do," Ezra said quietly. Thomas looked at him. Something passed between them, man to almost man, understanding to understanding. "Thank you," Thomas said, "for everything you've done for us." Ezra stood, put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Thank you for letting me." Clara watched them, her son, and the man who'd become his father, in everything but blood. Two broken people healing each other. That's what family was, she realized. Not perfection. Not the absence of pain. Just people who chose each other, who stayed, who fought. She thought about William, about all the years they'd had together, all the love they'd shared. He was gone. That would never stop hurting. But his legacy lived on, in their children, in the man they were becoming, in the values he'd taught them, and in the new family rising from the ashes of the old. That night, after the children were asleep, Ezra found Clara on the porch. "Beautiful night," he said. He sat beside her, their shoulders touched. "I've been thinking," he said. "About what? About us. About the future." He paused. About what happens when the trial's over and everything settles down. Clara's heart quickened. What about it? Ezra reached into his pocket, pulled out something small that glinted in the moonlight. This was Sarah's, he said quietly. Her wedding ring. I've kept it all these years. Couldn't bear to let it go. Clara's breath caught. I'm not asking you to replace her. I'm not asking you to forget William. Ezra turned to face her. I'm just asking if maybe you'd consider... He couldn't finish. For a man who'd faced down armed killers without flinching, he was trembling like a leaf. Clara took the ring from his palm. It was simple. Gold, worn smooth by years of love. Yes, she whispered. Ezra blinked. What? Yes. I'll marry you. Yes. Clara laughed, tears spilling down her cheeks. Did you think I'd say no? I didn't know. I hoped, but... Clara kissed him, long and deep and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, Ezra slipped the ring onto her finger. It fits, Clara said wonderingly. It does. Ezra's voice was rough, almost like it was meant to. They sat together in the moonlight, hands intertwined, hearts full. And for the first time in a very long time, Clara believed in happy endings. The news of the engagement spread through Copper Falls like wildfire. Agnes heard it first and had the entire town informed by noon. By evening, women Clara had never met were stopping by with gifts. Quilts, preserves, a hand-stitched tablecloth from the Morrison widow. They're grateful, Ezra explained as another wagon pulled up the drive. For what? For giving them hope. For showing them Brennan could be beaten. He smiled slightly. And for giving them something to celebrate that doesn't involve death or loss. Clara understood. After years of fear, the community needed joy, needed proof that good things could still happen. She just hadn't expected to be that proof. The children took the news differently. Thomas shook Ezra's hand like a man sealing a business deal. You'll take care of her. I will. And us. All of you. Always. Thomas nodded once. Then I've got no objections. Maggie cried. Happy tears, she insisted, though Clara wasn't entirely sure. Her middle daughter had always kept her emotions close hidden behind those watchful eyes and that busy pencil. Are you okay with this? Clara asked her privately. Maggie was quiet for a long moment. Papa's really not coming back, is he? No, baby, he's not. And Mr. Ezra makes you happy? He does. Maggie nodded slowly. Then I'm okay with it. Papa would want you happy. She paused. Can I paint the wedding? Clara laughed through her tears. You can paint whatever you want. The twins were ecstatic. They immediately began planning the ceremony with the intensity of military generals. We need flowers, Lily declared. It's winter, Rose pointed out. Then we'll make paper flowers, and ribbon, and we need music. Can Thomas play the fiddle? Thomas can't play anything. Then we'll sing. We'll sing really loud so nobody notices how bad we are. Clara listened to them chatter, heart full to bursting. And Samuel climbed into Ezra's lap at dinner that night and made an announcement. When you marry Mama, I get to call you Papa, for real. Ezra's throat worked. You can call me whatever you want, son. I want to call you Papa, but not the same as my first Papa. He's Papa William. You're Papa Ezra. Samuel considered this. Is that okay? That's perfect. Good. Samuel snuggled closer. Because you're the best Papa in the whole world, except for Papa William. He's the best too. You're both the best. Clara saw Ezra's eyes glisten. He blinked it away fast, but not fast enough. Later, when the children were asleep, she found him on the porch. You okay? Yeah. His voice was rough. I never thought I'd have this again. A family. Kids calling me Papa. He looked at her. It feels like stealing. Stealing? Sarah and Emmeline are gone, William's gone, and here I am stepping into their places taking what should have been theirs. He shook his head. Doesn't seem right. Clara sat beside him, took his hand. When William died, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd spend the rest of my days just surviving, existing, going through the motions until I could finally stop. She squeezed his fingers. Then I found you, and I realized surviving isn't enough. I want to live. I want to be happy. I want my children to see what real love looks like. Clara, you're not stealing anything. You're building, taking the broken pieces of two shattered lives and making something new. Her voice dropped. Sarah would want you happy. William would want me happy. Honoring them doesn't mean staying miserable forever. It means living well, living fully, living the way they would have wanted us to. Ezra was silent for a long moment. How'd you get so wise? Nearly dying a few times focuses the mind. He laughed a real laugh, full and warm. Clara realized she'd never heard him laugh like that before. I love you, he said quietly. It was the first time he'd said it out loud. Not implied, not shown through actions, actually said. Clara's heart cracked open. I love you too. They sat together under the stars, hands intertwined, hearts finally at peace. But peace, Clara was learning, never lasted long. The letter arrived 3 days before the trial. Clara was making breakfast when Thomas brought it in, face pale. It's addressed to you. No return address. Clara wiped her hands and took the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, words cut from newspapers and pasted together. Drop the testimony, or your children will suffer. Clara's blood ran cold. Ezra appeared in the doorway. What is it? Wordlessly, she handed him the letter. His face went stone hard. When did this come? Just now. No one saw who delivered it. Ezra moved to the window, scanning the property. Could be anyone. Brennan still has friends, people who owed him, people who benefited from his operation. What do? We don't do anything. Ezra's voice was steel. We go to that trial, we give our testimony, and we end this. But the children will be protected. He turned to Thomas. Get your sisters and brother. Bring them to the main house. Nobody leaves this building until I say. Thomas ran. Clara grabbed Ezra's arm. What are you planning? I'm going to find out who sent this, and then I'm going to make sure they never threaten this family again. Ezra, stay here. Keep the children inside. I'll be back before dark. He was gone before she could argue. Clara spent the day pacing. The children sensed something was wrong. Even Samuel, who usually chattered non-stop, was quiet. He sat in the corner, clutching his wooden horse, watching his mother with worried eyes. Mama. Maggie finally broke the silence. What's happening? Clara hesitated. She'd always tried to protect her children from the worst of the world, but they'd already seen so much. Hiding things now felt like a betrayal. Someone sent us a letter, a threat. They want us to stop testifying against Mr. Brennan. What kind of threat? Thomas's voice was hard. Clara showed him the letter. His jaw tightened. Where's Mr. Ezra? He went to find out who sent it. Alone? Yes. Thomas moved toward the door. Clara caught his arm. Don't. He shouldn't be out there by himself. He can handle himself. Ma. Thomas. Clara's voice was firm. I need you here. Your sisters need you. Samuel needs you. Ezra will be fine. Thomas looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Yes, ma'am. They waited. Hours passed. The sun crept across the sky shadows, lengthening, temperature dropping. Clara couldn't eat, couldn't sit still. Kept checking the window, the door, the horizon. What if something had happened? What if Ezra was hurt? Dead. What if she'd finally found happiness only to lose it again? The door burst open. Clara spun, heart in her throat. Ezra stood in the doorway, breathing hard, clothes disheveled. Behind him was Sheriff Tucker holding a man in handcuffs. "Found him," Ezra said. Clara stared at the prisoner. He was young, early 20s, terrified. "Who is he?" "Marcus Webb, Brennan's nephew." Ezra's voice was flat. "He's the one who sent the letter. Thought if he scared you off, his uncle might get acquitted." Tucker shoved the young man forward. "He's confessed to everything. The letter, the fire at the bunkhouse, even tried to poison your well last week." Clara's stomach dropped. "Poison?" "Didn't work. Your boy Thomas noticed the water looked funny. Smart kid." Clara turned to Thomas. Her eldest was pale but standing tall. "You never told me about the water." "Didn't want to worry you." "Thomas." "I handled it, Ma. I dumped the bucket and drew fresh water from the stream." He shrugged. "Figured it was just dirty." Clara pulled him into a fierce hug. "Don't you ever hide something like that from me again." "Yes, ma'am." Tucker cleared his throat. "I'll take young Mr. Webb to join his uncle." Judge added attempted murder to the charges. "Brennan's not getting out of this." After Tucker left, Clara collapsed into a chair. "It's really over." "Almost." Ezra knelt beside her. 3 more days. Then the trial. Then it's finished. And until then we stay vigilant. Stay together. Stay strong." He took her hand. "We've come too far to fall apart now." Clara nodded. She was exhausted, terrified. But she was also determined. 3 more days. She could survive 3 more days. The trial began on a Tuesday. Clara had never been inside a courtroom before. It was smaller than she'd imagined. Colder. The judge's bench loomed at the front like a wooden altar. Brennan sat at the defendant's table, dressed in a fine suit, face composed. Like he was attending a business meeting, not fighting for his life. But Clara saw the cracks. The way his hands trembled. The sweat beading on his forehead. The nervous glances at the jury. He was scared. Good. The prosecutor, a thin man from Helena named Jonathan Price, laid out the case with methodical precision. The forged contracts, the enslaved families, the mine sabotage that killed William. Witness after witness took the stand. Henry Dawson, Ruth, the Morrison widow, James Hartley, the foreman who'd written to Clara. Each one told their story. Each one pointed at Brennan. Each one drove another nail into his coffin. Then it was Clara's turn. She walked to the witness stand on shaking legs, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And then she talked. She talked about William, their life together, his death, the lies she'd been told. She talked about Brennan's visit, the contract, the pressure, the threats. She talked about running. 3 days through frozen wilderness with 5 children and no food. The terror, the desperation, the moment she collapsed at Stone Creek Ranch. "And what happened then?" the prosecutor asked. Clara looked at Ezra sitting in the front row, eyes fixed on her face. "A man took us in, fed us, sheltered us, protected us when Brennan's men came to drag us back." Her voice steadied. "He gave us everything he had. Almost lost his life defending us." "And why are you here today?" "Mrs. Whitmore." Clara turned to face Brennan, looked him dead in the eyes. "Because my husband was murdered. Because dozens of families were enslaved. Because a man who thinks he's above the law needs to learn that he isn't." She paused. "And because some things are worth fighting for. Even when you're scared. Even when you might lose. Some fights are too important to walk away from." The courtroom was silent. The defense attorney rose. "Mrs. Whitmore, isn't it true that you signed the contract willingly?" "I signed under duress. I was threatened. My children were threatened." "But you did sign." I signed a forged document. My actual signature looks nothing like what's on that paper. The attorney produced the contract. This isn't your signature. No. How can you be certain? Because I'm left-handed. That signature was made by a right-handed person. The slant is wrong. The pressure is wrong. Anyone who knows me knows how I write. Clara's voice was firm. That signature is a forgery, just like all the others. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The defense attorney tried a few more angles. Each time Clara shut him down. She was calm, collected, certain. When she finally stepped down, her legs were trembling, but her head was high. Ezra caught her hand as she passed, squeezed once. "You were incredible," he whispered. Clara didn't feel incredible. She felt like she might collapse. But she'd done it. She'd faced down the man who'd destroyed her life. Whatever happened next, that couldn't be taken away. The verdict came on Friday. Clara sat between Ezra and Thomas, hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. The children had stayed at the ranch with Agnes, but the courtroom was packed with families, the Dawsons, the Morrisons, everyone whose life Brennan had ruined. The jury filed in. 12 men, faces grim, eyes forward. The judge spoke. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." Clara couldn't breathe. "On the charge of forgery, how do you find guilty?" A gasp rippled through the courtroom. "On the charge of fraud, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy, guilty." Clara's heart pounded. "On the charge of murder in the first degree." Silence. Endless, agonizing silence. "Guilty." The courtroom exploded. People cheering, crying, embracing. Clara couldn't hear any of it. Her ears were ringing. Her vision blurred. Guilty. He was guilty. After everything, the running, the hiding, the fear, justice had prevailed. Ezra pulled her close. She buried her face against his chest and sobbed. "It's over," he whispered. "It's really over." But it wasn't. Not quite. The judge banged his gavel. "Order, order in the court." Slowly, the chaos subsided. "Silas Brennan." The judge's voice was ice. "You have been found guilty of crimes too numerous to count. You preyed on the vulnerable. You stole from the poor. You murdered an innocent man and left his family to suffer." Brennan stood motionless. His face had gone gray. "The sentence for first-degree murder in this territory is death by hanging. Execution to take place 1 month from today." Brennan's composure finally cracked. "You can't do this." He lunged forward, deputies grabbing him. "I own this county. I made this county. You can't." "Remove the prisoner." They dragged him out, screaming. Clara watched him go. She felt nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. Not even relief. Just emptiness. It was done. They returned to Stone Creek Ranch as the sun was setting. The children ran out to meet them, faces anxious. "What happened?" Thomas demanded. "Guilty." Clara's voice was hollow. "On all charges. He's going to hang." Maggie burst into tears. Lily and Rose grabbed each other. Samuel looked confused, too young to understand what any of it meant. "Is the bad man going away forever?" he asked. Clara knelt down, took his small face in her hands. "Yes, baby. Forever." Samuel nodded solemnly. "Good. He was mean." Clara laughed, a broken, exhausted sound. "Yes, he was very mean." That night, the families gathered at Stone Creek for a celebration. Someone brought a fiddle. Someone else brought moonshine. Before long, the front room was full of music and laughter, people dancing and singing, releasing years of pent-up fear and grief. Clara watched from the corner, too tired to join. Agnes appeared beside her. "You did good, girl." "Did I?" "You brought down the most powerful man in the county, freed dozens of families, got justice for your husband." Agnes handed her a cup. Drink. You've earned it. Clara sipped. The moonshine burned going down. It doesn't feel like I thought it would. What doesn't? Winning, justice, all of it. Clara stared at the dancing figures. I thought I'd feel happy, satisfied. Something. You feel empty. Clara looked at her. That's normal. Agnes's voice was surprisingly gentle. Revenge is like that. You spend so long wanting it, chasing it, that when you finally get it. She shrugged. The hole's still there. The loss is still there. Justice doesn't bring back the dead. Clara's eyes filled with tears. What does help? Time. Family. Building something new. Agnes nodded toward Ezra, who was watching Clara from across the room. Love if you're lucky enough to find it. Clara watched her fiancé. He was surrounded by children hers, and others showing them card tricks making them laugh. He looked up, caught her eye, smiled. Her heart clenched. I am lucky, she whispered. Then don't waste it. Agnes patted her arm. Go to him. Dance. Laugh. Live. She paused. William would want that. Clara took a deep breath, set down her cup, and walked toward her future. They danced. Not well, neither of them really knew the steps, but that didn't matter. They held each other and swayed while the fiddle played, surrounded by the people they'd helped, the family they'd built. What are you thinking? Ezra asked. That I want to get married. We are getting married. No, I mean now. Soon. As soon as possible. Clara looked up at him. I don't want to wait. I don't want to plan. I just want to stand up in front of everyone and promise to spend my life with you. Ezra's eyes softened. What about the children? Don't they want a big ceremony? The children want us happy. Everything else is just decoration. Ezra was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Tomorrow. Clara blinked. What? Let's get married tomorrow. Reverend Brooks is here. The families are here. We've got music, food, even moonshine. His arms tightened around her. Why wait? Clara's heart soared. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Clara laughed. Actually laughed full and bright and free. Yes. Tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow. Ezra kissed her right there in front of everyone, and for once, Clara didn't care who was watching. The wedding happened at noon the next day. Clara wore a simple blue dress, the nicest thing she owned. Agnes had spent the morning weaving winter flowers into her hair. Maggie had painted a small portrait of the family as a gift. The children stood at the front of the room, scrubbed clean and fidgeting with excitement. Thomas tried to look solemn. The twins kept giggling. Samuel clutched his wooden horse, appointed official ring-bearer, despite having no idea what that meant. And Ezra. Ezra stood at the makeshift altar, wearing the suit he'd last worn to bury his wife. But his eyes weren't sad. They were full of light, of hope, of love. Clara walked toward him on legs that didn't feel steady. This was real. This was happening. After everything, the loss, the fear, the running, she was getting married again. Starting over, building a new life from the ashes of the old. Reverend Brooks cleared his throat. Dearly beloved. Clara barely heard the words. She was lost in Ezra's eyes, in the warmth of his hands holding hers, in the impossible miracle of standing here at all. Do you, Ezra Jeremiah Callahan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. No hesitation, no doubt. Do you, Clara Ann Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Clara's voice came out clear and strong. I do. Then by the power vested in me by God and the Montana Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. Brooks smiled. You may kiss the bride. Ezra cupped her face in his rough hands and kissed her. The room erupted. Children cheering, adults clapping, the fiddle starting up again. But Clara heard none of it. All she heard was her heart beating steady and strong, finally at peace. When they broke apart, Samuel tugged on Ezra's coat. "Papa Ezra." "Yeah, son." "Does this mean we're a real family now?" Ezra lifted the boy into his arms. "We were always a real family," he said. "Now we're just official." Samuel grinned. "I like official." Clara wrapped her arms around both of them. Her other children crowded close. Thomas trying to look dignified, failing. The twins bouncing with excitement. Maggie watching it all with those knowing eyes, already composing the painting in her mind. This was her family. Broken and rebuilt. Scarred and healing. Imperfect and beautiful. She wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. The celebration lasted until midnight. When the last guest finally left, Clara found herself alone with Ezra on the porch. The children were asleep, worn out from dancing and sugar and joy. The night was cold but clear. Stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. "Mrs. Callahan." Ezra tried out the name. Clara smiled. "Mr. Callahan." "Sounds right." "It does." They stood in comfortable silence, shoulders touching. "What happens now?" Clara asked. "Now," Ezra considered. "Now we live. We work the ranch. We raise the children. We grow old together." "That's it." "That's everything." Clara leaned against him. He was right. After the chaos and drama of the past weeks, everything was exactly what she wanted. Simple days, honest work, a family that loved each other. What more could anyone ask for? "I have something for you." Ezra reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. Clara took it, curious. Inside was a silver locket on a delicate chain. "Open it." She did. Inside were two tiny photographs. On one side, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. On the other, a little girl with her mother's face. "Sarah and Emmeline," Clara breathed. "I want you to have it. Not to replace them in your heart, they'll always be there, but to carry them with us." Ezra's voice was rough. "They would have loved you, and they would have wanted me to find happiness again." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I'll cherish it. Always." She fastened the locket around her neck next to her own heart. "Now they're part of our family too," she said. "Sarah and Emmeline, William, all of them. Not gone. Just with us differently." Ezra pulled her close. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For saving me." His voice cracked. "I was dead, Clara. Walking around breathing, but dead. Then you showed up half frozen, half starved with 5 children and nothing to your name, and you brought me back to life." Clara touched his face. "We saved each other." "Yeah." He smiled. "I reckon we did." They stood together under the stars, two broken people made whole by love. And somewhere, Clara was certain William and Sarah and Emmeline were watching, smiling, finally at peace. Spring came to Stone Creek Ranch like a whispered prayer. The snow melted slowly, revealing green shoots beneath the white. The creek swelled with runoff from the mountains. The horses grew restless, eager to run in the warming air. And the Callahan family grew into itself. Clara woke each morning to the sound of children laughing, to the smell of coffee brewing, to the warmth of Ezra's arm around her waist. It still felt like a dream. Even now, 3 months after the wedding, she sometimes caught herself waiting for something to shatter the peace. But nothing did. The ranch thrived under their combined care. Thomas had become Ezra's right hand working the land, with a dedication that made Clara's heart swell. At 15 now, he'd grown taller than his mother, broader in the shoulders, more confident in his step. "He reminds me of his father," Clara told Ezra one evening. "He reminds me of you." Me. The stubbornness, the determination, the way he refuses to quit. Ezra smiled. "That's all you." Clara watched her son through the window. He was teaching Samuel how to saddle a horse patient and steady guiding small hands through the motions. William would be proud. William is proud. Ezra squeezed her shoulder. Wherever he is, he's proud. Clara leaned into him. I hope so. Maggie's paintings had caught the attention of people beyond Helena. A collector from San Francisco had written offering to sponsor an exhibition. The letter sat on Clara's desk, read and reread a dozen times. I don't know, Maggie said when Clara showed it to her. San Francisco is so far. It's an opportunity, a real one. But what about the family? What about the ranch? Clara knelt in front of her daughter. At 12 now, Maggie was growing into a young woman, still quiet, still watchful, but with a confidence that hadn't been there before. The family will always be here. The ranch isn't going anywhere. But your talent... Clara touched Maggie's face. Your talent is a gift, baby. You shouldn't hide it away. What if I fail? What if you don't? Maggie was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. I'll write back. Say yes. Clara pulled her into a fierce hug. I'm so proud of you. Even if I fail. Especially then. Because you tried. The twins had started a school. It began small. Just the children from nearby ranches gathered in the Callahan's front room learning letters and numbers from whatever books Clara could find. But word spread. More families sent their children. By spring they had 15 students and not enough space. We need a proper building, Lily announced at dinner. A real schoolhouse. Schools cost money, Ezra pointed out. Then we'll raise money. Rose was already planning. We'll have a fair, sell Maggie's paintings, Mama's preserves, that quilt Agnes has been working on. You've thought this through. We've thought about nothing else for weeks. Clara looked at her 9-year-old twins, so different from the frightened children who'd stumbled onto this ranch 6 months ago. They'd found purpose, found passion, found a reason to build instead of just survive. I think it's a wonderful idea, she said. The twins beamed. And Samuel. Samuel had stopped having nightmares. Clara noticed at first the absence of screaming in the night, the peaceful sleep that came without terror. Then she noticed other things. The way he laughed more, the way he ran instead of walked, the way he called Ezra Papa without hesitation or guilt. He's healing, Clara told Ezra. Kids are resilient. It's more than that. She struggled for words. It's like he finally feels safe, really safe, for the first time since William died. Ezra was quiet for a moment. Do I what? Feel safe? Clara considered the question, thought about everything they'd been through. The running, the fear, the violence, the trial. Yes, she said finally. I do. Good. Ezra pulled her close. That's all I ever wanted. The hanging was scheduled for April. Clara didn't want to go. She'd seen enough of Brennan, heard enough of his voice, endured enough of his presence. The thought of watching him die, even a man as evil as him, turned her stomach. But the prosecutor asked her to be there. The families asked her to be there. Even Sheriff Tucker asked, saying it would bring closure. You don't have to, Ezra said. I know. If you go, I'll go with you. I know that too. Clara stared out the window, watching Thomas work with the horses. He killed my husband, she said quietly. He destroyed my life. He almost took my children. She turned to face Ezra. Part of me wants to watch, wants to see him pay, wants to know it's really over. And the other part is tired. Tired of anger. Tired of hate. Tired of giving that man any more of my time. Clara sighed. I don't know which part to listen to. Listen to both. Then decide what you can live with. Clara thought about it for 3 days. On the morning of the hanging, she rose before dawn, dressed carefully, kissed her sleeping children, and rode into town. The square was packed. Clara had never seen so many people in Copper Falls. They'd come from all over the territory. Families. Brennan had hurt people who wanted to see justice served the merely curious. She found a spot near the back. Ezra stood beside her, solid and silent. The gallows had been built in front of the courthouse. Simple, functional. A platform, a trapdoor, a rope. Brennan was led out at noon. He'd aged decades since the trial. His fine clothes were gone, replaced by prison gray. His face was hollow. His hands shook. But his eyes were still defiant, still calculating, still searching for escape. There was none. The hangman read the charges. Brennan was asked if he had any last words. "I regret nothing." His voice was hoarse but clear. "Everything I did for power, for wealth, for legacy, and I would do it again." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Clara felt nothing. She'd expected rage, triumph, something. But standing there watching the man who'd destroyed her life prepare to die, she felt only emptiness. It wasn't enough. No amount of justice could bring William back. No amount of punishment could undo what she'd suffered. But it was done, and that was something. The hood went over Brennan's head. The noose tightened around his neck. The trapdoor opened. Clara didn't look away. Brennan dropped. The rope snapped taut. And then it was over. The crowd was silent. Then someone cheered. Then another. Then hundreds of voices released from years of fear, crying out in relief and joy. Clara turned and walked away. Ezra followed her without a word. They didn't speak until they were halfway home. "Are you okay?" Ezra finally asked. Clara considered the question. "I thought I'd feel different," she said. "I thought watching him die would change something, but it didn't. Sometimes closure isn't what we expect." "What do you mean?" Ezra guided his horse closer to hers. "When I came back from the war and found Sarah and Emmeline's graves, I wanted someone to blame. I wanted someone to punish. I wanted someone to pay for what I'd lost." He paused. But there was no one. Disease doesn't have a face. Death doesn't answer for its crimes. "So what did you do?" "I got angry, at God, at the world, at myself. I stayed angry for 11 years. His voice dropped. "It didn't bring them back. It didn't heal the wound. It just kept me stuck in the moment of loss." Clara understood. She'd lived that way too after William died, trapped in grief and rage, unable to move forward. "What changed?" Ezra looked at her. "You did." Clara's throat tightened. "You showed me that it was possible to carry grief and still find joy, to honor the dead and still embrace the living." He reached over, took her hand. "That's the real closure, Clara. Not watching someone die. Not revenge or justice or punishment. It's choosing to live anyway, to love anyway, to build anyway." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "I'm tired of carrying anger." "Then put it down." "It's not that simple." "No, but it's possible." Ezra squeezed her hand. "And you don't have to do it alone." Clara rode in silence for a long moment. Then she stopped her horse, dismounted, walked to the edge of the road where a small stream tumbled over rocks. She stood there breathing deeply, letting the sound of the water wash over her. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the threatening letter, the one Brennan's nephew had sent, the one she'd kept folded and refolded, a reminder of the fear she'd lived with. She held it over the stream. "Goodbye, William," she whispered. "I'll always love you. But I have to let go now. I have to move forward. I have to live." She released the paper. The stream caught it, carried it away, dissolved it into nothing. Clara watched until it was gone. Then she turned, walked back to her horse and mounted. "Let's go home," she said. Ezra smiled. "Yes, ma'am." They rode into Stone Creek Ranch as the sun was setting. The children ran out to meet them, Samuel launching himself into Ezra's arms, the twins chattering about school plans, Maggie showing her latest sketch, Thomas standing back trying to look grown up, failing entirely. Clara looked at them, her family whole and happy, and felt something shift inside her. Not the absence of pain. That would never fully go away. But the presence of something else. Something stronger. Something that had grown in the space grief used to occupy. Hope. Love. Peace. She dismounted and gathered her children close. "I love you," she told them. "All of you. So much." "We know, Mama." Thomas's voice was warm. "We love you too." That night, after the children were asleep, Clara found Ezra on the porch. "There's something I need to tell you," she said. Ezra turned. Concern flickered in his eyes. "What is it?" Clara sat beside him, took his hand. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air. Ezra stared at her. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. We're going to have a baby." Clara laughed at his expression. "Sometime in the fall, I think." "A baby?" "Yes." "Our baby?" "Yes, Ezra. Our baby." His face transformed. Joy. Wonder. Fear. All of it washing across his features like weather across the prairie. "I thought," his voice cracked. "After Sarah and Emmeline, I thought I'd never—" Clara touched his face. "Are you happy? Happy?" Ezra pulled her into his arms. "I'm terrified, and amazed, and grateful, and so happy I don't know what to do with it." "That sounds about right." He held her for a long moment, then he pulled back, concern returning. "Are you okay? Is everything— do you need—" "I'm fine. The doctor in town checked me over. Everything's normal." Clara smiled. "I've done this 5 times before, remember? But you were younger then." "I was also alone, exhausted, terrified." She took his hands. "This time is different. This time I have you. I have the children. I have a home. I have everything I need." Ezra's eyes glistened. "A baby," he whispered again. "We're going to have a baby. We are. I'm going to be a father again. You already are a father. To 5 children who adore you. But this one will be ours, yours and mine. A Callahan from the start." Ezra kissed her, long and deep and full of promise. "I love you," he said when they finally broke apart. "I love you too." They sat together under the stars, hands intertwined, hearts full. And for the first time in a very long time, the future looked bright. The news spread through the family like wildfire. Thomas tried to act mature about it, but Clara caught him grinning when he thought no one was looking. Maggie started painting nursery scenes, her sketches filled with soft colors and gentle shapes. The twins immediately began planning: names, clothes, toys, a detailed schedule for who would help with what. "I want to hold the baby first," Lily announced. "You can't hold a baby first, you're not even the oldest." "I'm the most careful." "You broke 3 eggs yesterday." "That was different." Clara listened to them argue and felt her heart expand. "And Samuel." Samuel sat quietly through the announcement, face thoughtful. Later, Clara found him in the barn, talking to his wooden horse. "Hey, baby." She knelt beside him. "What are you thinking?" Samuel was quiet for a moment. "If you have a new baby, will you still love me?" Clara's heart cracked. "Oh, Samuel." She pulled him into her arms. "Nothing in this world could make me love you less. Not a new baby. Not anything. But the baby will be Papa Ezra's real child, and I'm just—" "You're just what?" Samuel's lip trembled. "I'm just someone he took in. Someone he felt sorry for." Clara took her son's face in her hands, made him look at her. "Listen to me. You are not someone Papa Ezra felt sorry for. You are his son. He chose you. He loves you. And that love isn't going to change because of a new baby. Promise. I promise." Clara kissed his forehead. When you were born, I already had 4 children. Did I love you less because of them? No. Did I love them less because of you? No. Then why would this be any different? Samuel thought about it. Then his face cleared. I guess it wouldn't. It wouldn't. Love doesn't divide, baby. It multiplies. Samuel hugged her tight. I love you, Mama. I love you too. Forever and always. That evening, Ezra found Samuel on the porch, staring at the sunset. Mind if I sit? Samuel shook his head. Ezra settled beside him, and for a while, they just watched the colors change. Your mama told me you were worried, Ezra finally said. Samuel nodded, not looking up. Want to tell me about it? Samuel was quiet for a long moment. Then, are you going to love the new baby more than me? Ezra didn't answer immediately. When he spoke, his voice was careful. Can I tell you something, Samuel? Something I've never told anyone. Samuel looked up. What? When I first saw you that day, you all showed up half frozen and starving. You were the first one who looked at me without fear. Your mama was scared. Thomas was suspicious. Even your sisters kept their distance. But you... Ezra smiled at the memory. You looked at me like I was something wonderful. Like I was something worth trusting. I remember. That moment changed everything for me. I'd spent 11 years building walls around my heart, telling myself I'd never love anyone again. And then a 4-year-old with dirty cheeks and scared eyes looked at me like I mattered. Ezra's voice thickened. You broke through those walls, Samuel. You taught me it was safe to love again. Samuel's eyes were wide. I did. You did. And nothing, not a new baby, not 100 new babies, could ever change what you mean to me. You're my son, my first son, the one who saved me. Samuel threw his arms around Ezra's neck. I love you, Papa. Ezra held him close, tears streaming. I love you too, son, more than you'll ever know. Summer came hot and full of life. The schoolhouse was built a small wooden structure at the edge of town, paid for by donations from families across the territory. The Twins Fair had raised more money than anyone expected, and the community had rallied to finish the job. Clara stood at the opening ceremony, watching Lily and Rose cut the ribbon, and felt overwhelming pride. These were her children, her fierce, determined, impossible children. They would change the world. Maggie left for San Francisco in July. It was the hardest goodbye Clara had ever experienced, harder in some ways than leaving William's grave. Write to me, Clara said, holding her daughter at the train station. Every week. I will. And if you need anything, anything at all, I'll come home. Maggie pulled back, tears in her eyes. But I have to do this, Mama. I have to try. I know. Clara touched her face. I'm so proud of you. For leaving. For having the courage to chase your dreams. For being brave enough to become who you're meant to be. Maggie hugged her one more time. Then she boarded the train, waving through the window as it pulled away. Clara watched until it disappeared. Ezra put his arm around her. She'll be okay. I know. Clara wiped her eyes. It just hurts. That's the price of raising them right. They grow up. They leave. They become their own people. Is it worth it? Ezra turned her to face him. What do you think? Clara thought about Maggie's paintings, her talent, her dreams. Yes, she said. It's worth it. The baby came in October. Clara had been through this before, but every birth was different. This one was hard hours of labor, moments of fear, Ezra pacing outside while the midwife worked. But when she finally held her daughter in her arms, all of that faded away. She's perfect, Clara whispered. Ezra knelt beside the bed, tears streaming down his weathered face. She looks like you. She has your eyes. The baby blinked up at them, new to the world, already loved beyond measure. What should we name her? Clara asked. They'd discussed it for months, made lists, argued gently, never quite decided. Ezra looked at his daughter, his miracle, his impossible gift. Grace, he said quietly. After Emmeline, Grace, if that's okay with you. Clara's throat tightened. What about Sarah? Grace Sarah Callahan. Ezra tested the name. To honor everyone we've lost and everyone we've found. Clara smiled through her tears. It's perfect. The children came in one by one. Thomas trying to look unaffected and failing completely. The twins vibrating with excitement, already planning how they'd help. Samuel approaching slowly, eyes wide with wonder. She's so small, he breathed. You were that small once, Clara said. Was I smaller? Samuel reached out one careful finger and touched his sister's hand. Grace's tiny fingers wrapped around his, holding tight. Samuel grinned. She likes me. She loves you. She's your sister. I'm going to take care of her, Samuel announced. I'm going to be the best big brother ever. I know you will, baby. Clara looked around at her family. Thomas standing tall. The twins planning. Samuel protecting. Ezra holding their daughter like she was made of glass. And somewhere she knew Maggie was painting. William was watching. Sarah and Emmeline were smiling. This was what they'd fought for, what they'd suffered for, what they'd nearly died for. Family, love, home. It was enough. It was everything. 1 year later, Clara stood on the porch of Stone Creek Ranch and watched her family. Thomas had grown into a man. He'd built a small house on the north pasture, started courting the schoolteacher's daughter. He still worked the ranch alongside Ezra, but he was making his own way now. Maggie had returned from San Francisco, successful beyond anyone's dreams. Her paintings hung in galleries across the country. But she always came home, she said. Home was where the light was best. The twins had turned their school into something remarkable. 30 students now from all across the territory. Girls and boys alike learning to read and write and think for themselves. Samuel was 6, no longer the frightened child who'd cried for his papa. He followed Ezra everywhere, learning the land growing strong. He still had his wooden horse battered, now loved beyond repair. And Grace. Grace was walking, talking, getting into everything. She had Ezra's quiet intensity and Clara's stubborn spirit. She was, everyone agreed, going to be trouble. Clara wouldn't have it any other way. Ezra came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. What are you thinking? Clara leaned back against him. I'm thinking about that day, when we showed up half dead on your doorstep, when you asked if these were all my children. And you said yes. And you said good. You'd take every one. Clara turned to face him. Why did you do that? Really, a stranger with 5 children, trouble at her heels. Why did you take us in? Ezra was quiet for a moment. Because I recognized something, he finally said. In your eyes. In the way you held your children. The way you stood even though you were breaking. What did you recognize? Me. His voice was soft. I recognized myself. The person I'd been before I gave up. Before I stopped fighting. He touched her face. You reminded me what it meant to love something so much you'd die for it. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I thought my life was over that day. So did I. And then there you were. Ezra smiled, proving both of us wrong. Clara kissed him, soft and sweet and full of gratitude. Thank you, she whispered, for taking a chance on us. Thank you for being worth the chance. They stood together, watching their family, watching their life. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days, painful memories, scars that would never fully heal. But it was good. It was real. It was theirs. And that was more than enough. That night, the whole family gathered around the dinner table. Thomas and his girl. Maggie, with stories from her travels. The twins arguing about school curriculum. Samuel helping Grace eat without making a mess. Ezra at the head of the table, Clara at his side. Outside, the Montana wind blew cold. Inside there was warmth and laughter and love. Samuel looked up from his plate. "Papa Ezra." "Yeah, son." "Are we happy?" Ezra looked around the table, at the children who'd become his own, at the woman who'd saved his life, at the future he'd never thought he'd have. "Yeah, son," he said. "We're happy." Samuel nodded solemnly. "Good. I like being happy." "So do I." Clara caught Ezra's eye across the table. He winked at her. She smiled back. And in that moment, surrounded by everything she'd almost lost and everything she'd found, Clara understood something important. Happiness wasn't the absence of pain. It wasn't forgetting the past or pretending the hard times never happened. Happiness was choosing to move forward anyway, choosing to love anyway, choosing to build a life worth living even when everything seemed lost. She'd done that, against all odds, despite every obstacle. She'd built something beautiful from the ashes of her old life. And she wasn't done yet. "Mama!" Grace's voice cut through her thoughts. Clara looked down at her daughter. "Yes, baby. Tell story." Clara smiled. "What kind of story?" "The story, your story, how you found Papa." The table went quiet, everyone listening. Clara looked at her family, 6 children, 1 husband, a lifetime of love. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a woman who lost everything, her husband, her home, her hope. She had 5 children and nothing else, and she thought her life was over." "What happened?" Grace asked. "She ran, across frozen mountains and endless snow with nothing but the clothes on her back and the children at her side. She walked until she couldn't walk anymore, until she thought she would die." "But she didn't die," Samuel said. He knew this story. They all did. "No, she didn't." Clara's voice softened. "Because she found something. A ranch at the end of a long road. A man who'd given up on love. And when he saw her broken and desperate and afraid, he didn't turn her away." "He took us in," Samuel said. "He took every one of you. And together they built something neither of them expected. A family. A home. A future." Clara looked at Ezra. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. "And they lived happily ever after?" Grace asked. Clara smiled. "They lived," she said. "They loved. They fought for each other every single day. And when times got hard, because times always get hard, they faced it together." "Is that better than happily ever after?" Clara thought about everything they'd been through, the pain and the joy, the loss and the finding, the breaking and the healing. "Yes, baby," she said finally. "It's better, because it's real." Grace nodded, satisfied. Clara looked around the table one more time. At her children growing strong, at her husband finally whole, at the life they'd built from nothing but hope and stubbornness and love. She thought about William watching over them from wherever the dead go. Thought about Sarah and Emmeline, part of their family now woven into the fabric of who they were. She thought about the woman she used to be scared, broken, convinced that happiness was behind her forever. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who'd learned the most important lesson of all. Family isn't something you're born into. It's something you choose, something you build, something you fight for every single day with everything you have. And Clara Ann Callahan, widow, mother, wife, survivor, had chosen well. She reached across the table and took Ezra's hand. He squeezed back. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall. Inside, surrounded by everyone she loved, Clara closed her eyes and smiled. This was her family. This was her home. This was her happily ever after. And nothing, not time, not distance, not even death itself could ever take that away.